This is The Fifth Estate, a conversation between young African scholars from the Fort Hall School of Government and Professor Mutahi Ngunyi. This Sunday, we are flabbergasted. The week began with talks of coming violence. The Mzungus from EU told us that there will be violence. And then shortly after, some terrorists attacked part of Kenya. And by Friday, our national anxiety hit pitch high as the judiciary continued to execute their civilian coup. But the shocker came on Saturday morning. We all woke up to the news that General Nkaissery had collapsed and died. It all looked like a bad dream. More so because security ministers do not die 30 days to an election. They're not allowed to. This is why we must pose one question to the country. What is the relationship between the Mzungu talk on violence, the terror attack, the civilian coup by the courts, and the death of General Nkaissery? At the surface, there is no relationship. But if you trace the lowest common denominator between these events, you will see a pattern. And the pattern will lead you to a beneficiary.
On the death of Nkaissery, the country has been told not to speculate. We disagree. In fact, we will go ahead and speculate. It is not against the law to speculate. For starters, we are not persuaded that Nkaissery died of natural causes. Zero. The coincidences are far too many. Why him and not any of the other 22 ministers? In our view, Nkaissery was the man to stop the coming violence predicted by Mzungus. In fact, he said that violence will only happen over his dead body. For him to die 30 days to the election is downright suspect. If, for purposes of argument, Nkaissery was assassinated, then we must fall back to the concept in law known as cui bono. This concept is used to identify motive in murder cases. And if Nkaissery was assassinated, we must ask the question, who had motive? Who benefits from his death? Once you identify the beneficiary, you will identify the killer. It is that simple. In our view, investigations should begin with the drivers of violence in this election. Period.
In the past, we have argued that this will be a black swan election. And the sudden death of General Nkaissery is a black swan. But what we do not know is how many blind spots, like the Nkaissery blind spot, lay ahead. Black swans are events that overturn established ways of thinking. Unfortunately, we only understand them long after they have happened. If this is a black swan election, full of surprises, then we must address Fred Matiang'i. And we will tell him two things. One, do not try to fit into Nkaissery's shoes. They are too big. Instead, bring your own shoes. Because your methods work, use them. And God be with you. Two, your starting point must borrow from Murphy's Law. This law states that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. This is why if your smartphone falls to the ground, it always falls with the screen facing down. And this is why all our smartphone screens are broken. Similarly, if your slice of buttered bread falls to the ground, the buttered side is always the one that faces the ground. Mr. Matiang'i, expect nothing. And this is how God will use you.
The death of Nkaissery leaves a deep sense of sadness in our national psyche. But it is not a tragedy that Nkaissery died. It would be a tragedy if we let die what Nkaissery stood for. This man had an infectious love for country. And if the country is sad, it is because he had infected all of us with the belief that country will be safe again. But now we must ask a few hard questions. Did Nkaissery really die? Or did they force him to die? In my view, Nkaissery was assassinated. Some say that he was probably sick, and I say that the easiest target for assassination is a sick man. This way you can blame his death on the sickness. But either way, it is still an assassination. In my view, though, Nkaissery was not sick. And if he was sick, the timing of his death is suspect. He could have pushed himself until after the election, more so because he is a general, and the energy we saw him with during the Friday meeting could have sustained him until after the election. And this is why I reject the argument that the man was sick. This man was assassinated, in my view. And the question we must ask is this: who benefits from his assassination, if this is really true?
Now we will return to the law of unrelated things. If the Muzungus predicted violence, Nkaissery died abruptly, and the terrorists attacked us, what is the lowest common denominator between these things? We have no idea. However, we must speculate. And by the way, speculation is a gift of intellectual curiosity. This is why we must speculate on the curious behavior of the judiciary. In Greek mythology, we are told that Lady Justice is blind. This means that blindness is part of justice. Justice is spontaneous, it does not have a pattern, it is unpredictable. However, all cases filed by NASA in court have a predictable result. They have an expected pattern. And the question we ask is this: if Raila loses the election, can we predict the verdict from the courts? And from history, the answer is yes. In our view, the swamp in the judiciary was never drained. If anything goes wrong in this election, we will blame the judiciary as the silent manufacturer of violence. And the ruling on ballot papers is a case in point. This was done with zero sensitivity to our national anxiety.
And now, our final thoughts. If General Nkaissery would die without ceremony, then the silent majority have no chance. They will be finished by the violence predicted by Muzungus. But before we explore this thought, let us return to General Nkaissery's diary. Why are the police camping at Bomas of Kenya? If the good general died of natural causes, why camp at Bomas, a Nyama Choma joint? They should be camping at Karen Hospital, investigating natural causes of death. And this is why, to get to the bottom of Nkaissery's death, every action taken so far points to an assassination. Whatever the investigations tell us, the court of public opinion has made its verdict. We have made up our mind. Do not confuse us with the facts. Our suspicion is that Nkaissery was assassinated. What we need to know is who did it and who benefits. And while at it, the eyes of the public are on the judiciary. We need to know if the courts are the agents that will burn country, and if they will kill the silent majority by abating violence through decisions like the one they made on ballot papers.